So it's Florida versus Ontario real estate showdown.
All right.
All right, Mikey.
Hold on, Steve. Steve walked away.
We're keeping that in the episode. Did he really?
He's getting all jacked up.
Who the hell is he?
Did you bring another shirt, Steve?
I can take off my shirt, guys.
It's
I
better.
got a little Disney
better
belly,
that way.
but it's all good.
Here we go, Mike. At your camera. 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, Mike got here with another episode of Real Estate on Record. I'm here with Steve Zolinardo. He's on Zoom. And Steve, we're going to be talking all about Florida versus Ontario today. Steph, what do you got? What do you got for us?
So I guess the very first question I got to ask before we go into the showdown is, why is Steve not here and how come he's on Zoom?
Because he's working hard in Florida.
Now, Steve, for a lot of people that are new to this episode, to this podcast, do you currently live in Florida, and how has the transition been?
We're back and forth. Clearly, we're running the business in Toronto. Mike's heading it up. So we're back and forth every month. This month we can't make it down, just based on holidays and stuff, how everything landed. So we've integrated into Florida. This is our expansion from Toronto into Florida. And you're saying like Ontario versus Florida. The good thing with our clients is they have access to both markets. So if they want a property in Florida, they have access to us direct, clearly, and then they can drop off their checks in Kleinburg because that's where our office is currently right now, where Mike is. So yeah, so we're basically we're functioning on both sides of the border. And for your question regarding how's it been, it's been great. I think it's all pros, no cons. We're really enjoying. I think the culture, really enjoying the culture, really rich. I never realized how rich American culture is. Like you know, like a lot of stuff we took for granted. When you're here actually experiencing like the 4th of July or even just a baseball game, it's pretty fun, man. Like I never really got into it. I think being in Canada was a little bit sheltered with that. But ultimately, when you're here, it's pretty fun. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
All right, so and that's amazing, man. Trust me, I have a house there, and I know exactly how you feel. But you've done the leap, which a lot of people are always hesitant about, but maybe we can shed some light on this particular one. So, Mike, as you said, we're doing Florida versus Ontario. The very first one that I want you guys to give it to me on both sides of the fence is climate consideration. Now, Florida has 2 technical temperatures, kind of fresh and warm and hot, right? In Canada, you got all the seasons across the border. Now, Mike, let's start with you. What about if someone loves the winter sports and stuff like that? Should they even consider Florida as a way of life? Like, explain to me, guys, the showdown when it comes to climate.
It's going to be, everyone has their own preference of what they want, right? At the end of the day, if you like the winter, you can still fly down to Florida get some of that heat and come back and go skiing, right?
Now, Steve, this is going to be for you to piggyback off of what Mike just said. Does the climate have a big impact on your property investments?
Look, pre-COVID, I would say Toronto, 100%. This is why I've never, even thought about this here. I always figured I was going to get a house here in Naples since 2013. I've been getting emails. But that was going to be a secondary property just to kind of escape the cold in Canada. I think going forward, it's a different type of America South, right? Just based on the economics. So right now we have not just the snowbirds moving in second property ownership. These are actual real people moving in with families, creating businesses, big corporations relocating their head offices in the South. So it's a little bit different right now. If I had to put my money somewhere for return on investment, it's just so here we don't have rent control, so we can raise rent when we need to based on inflation and stuff like that. It happens. We can evict tenants within start to end process in 3 weeks, and it's written in the law that the sheriff will physically remove this person out of your house. They just released a squatters law right now, and you're going to get this in Canada. Canada is the new Europe. Trust me, it's like living in Italy. When you got a squatter, you can't get them out of your house. So look, my client from New York sent this to me this morning. He's always got something to send me, which I love. So listen to this squatter law here in Florida. And again, it's aggressive, but it works in your favor as a landowner. Remember, if you work hard and you put all your money into real estate, like you want it protected, right? Am I talking out of my ass?
1,000%. You should be able to, like, if you have to sell your house because you need to improve your life or whatever, you should be able to sell your house and be able to get rid of someone to recoup that money.
Right? Like you own it. It's like it's your
Makes sense.
property. You're leasing it out. They got to respect the property and they got to pay. That's called making a deal, right? You sign a contract ahead of time before they get it. But look at this. This is the squatters law HB 621, declaring that there aren't enough legal assurances for property owners in the face of squatters. Legislators this year passed a bill that allows a property owner to request the county sheriff's office to remove a squatter. Certain conditions must be met, however, including that the property owner must have already asked the person to leave. I guess probably by written letter and stuff like that. I'm sure there's some process there. That the building wasn't open to the public when the squatter entered, and that the squatter isn't a current or former tenant. Under the bill, someone who unlawfully occupies a home and who causes more than $1,000 damage commits a second degree felony punishable up to 15 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
So you're telling me as a squat, you're gonna squat in someone's house and face 15 years of prison? You're gonna find
You're probably gonna leave.
other, yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna probably get a job.
Or maybe they want that 15 years of prison because they need somewhere to live.
The bill also aims to crack down on people who list homes for sale or rent without having the legal authority to do so. We were talking about this earlier. Remember the people that get into a property, either they resell it or they get in it, they release it and stuff like that, like vacant properties, and it's fraud clearly. So look at the punishable law here. Homes for sale or rent with having the legal authority to do so, seeking to scam other individuals. The bill makes it a first-degree felony, punishable up to 30 years in prison.
Wow.
But obviously, it's not going to really happen.
The top of punishing, but at the same time, like if you're a very lawful person like myself, I don't break any laws at all. This stuff works for me because I'm like straight and narrow. Like everything has got to be linear. I don't fool around with anything with law. So this all works for me. And so having property out here is, to me, is a lot safer based on the current laws of landlord ownership or land ownership rather.
You're right. And then on the flip side, what we're looking at here, we're looking at 9 to 10 months to legally evict a tenant, because that's what the wait is at the landlord tenant board for you to just get a hearing, right? Which is kind of insane.
So that's one thing. Did you see that big thing going around? It was basically Tenants opened up like a whole chat group, and it was like, this is how you scam your landlord. Like open fraud. Open fraud.
Yeah, we're allowing it.
This should be like punishable, like what we're talking about now. So that what they're saying is like, this is how you screw your landlord. You get in there, you pay a few months, you stop paying, and then the eviction process will take 9 to 10, 12 months based on whatever the downtime is, or the length of time to get it through the process. So your landlord will pay you cash for keys. So now you want these people out of your house because they're not paying, and you got to pay them.
And we're hearing big numbers now, like 80, 90, 100K cash for keys, which is like absolutely insane.
So then so let's do a comparison here, boys. Let's do a 2,000 square foot home here. How much would the property tax be compared to a 2,000 square foot home in Fort Myers be?
I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I save everything. And I got everything on the fingertips, buddy, like weapons.
Mike and I are looking at some property tax over here.
We're going to do it in real time, but I'm going to share my screen with you.
Oh, boy. This is Mondays with Steve all over again.
I'll give you a Monday with Steve. Monday.
All right, boys, give me some numbers. What are we looking at?
Okay, so I'm looking at one that we just purchased is about $7,400 in the city of Toronto for about 2,000 square feet, 73 to 7,400.
Holy!
Yeah. So that's probably not with even the 10% increase, because I just, like I said, personally sold and bought, and my lawyer basically added on top of what was listed the 10.5%. 7,400
Canadian.
So
that means it's. But
we got to keep it like
okay.
relevant.
Let's keep it relevant. So
yeah.
7,300 Canadian, Now, Steve, what are we looking at in Estero?
I'm gonna go to Fort Myers in the area where you own your property too. So here,
Okay.
can you see that the page? Can you see the page?
Yep, yep, I got it.
So what did you want to say? 600,000?
2,000 square feet.
2,000 square feet.
So just so 2,000 square feet in this area is 400.
No. How much are the
Yeah,
property?
yeah, but he's working the
Oh,
price
okay.
off the
Okay.
square foot.
So estimated tax 4,800.
So comparable, man. It's gonna be about 6,500 roughly Canadian.
But you're making US dollars. You're making US dollars though. So just
Yeah, you got to be making US dollars.
you can't look at it like conversion. So, but look
Yeah.
at when people talk about the homestead, since we have this, people say, well, you got a double tax or you got an out-of-state tax. That's the difference. If you homestead the property, it's 4,300 a month, 43. And then if you're not a homesteading, like a secondary property, you don't live in it, it's only a $500 difference.
Ask me.
What does homestead mean, Steve?
Homestead
Is that
means you live in the property. It's they call it SOS, save our houses, something like that. Save our souls. It's SO, yeah, something like that. Save our houses, save our homes program.
So is that like for a secondary property or is that a vacant property?
Yeah, secondary. So if you live in Canada, this is what you're going to be paying.
Well,
So-
no.
And then on top of that now, if we were in the reverse, so say we lived in Florida and came back to Canada and our house was vacant for over 6 months in Toronto.
That's right.
Now we have the vacant home tax,
That's right.
which is
Which is
on top of
I
that.
love how many taxes is there.
Is it 1%
Yeah,
of the purchase price
it's pretty high.
or the value?
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
But you need to have it vacant for 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, so in Toronto now we get a little beautiful little envelope from the government.
That's right. Yellow. I
Yeah,
got it yellow.
with a bunch of questions asking if they wanted you to verify that you live in the house. And that was under renovation at one point for more than 6 months. And I had to literally fill out a description and show them pictures and give them values. It's crazy.
All right, so now we got the property tax in order. Now, the last topic of interest on this one here.
One more thing before we start, because Toronto's going to pay a lower tax than New York region. What does a 2,000 square foot house in Woodbridge cost?
Well, it's got to be lower than Toronto.
No, Toronto's pays lower tax.
Yeah, price per capita is cheaper.
Because like the house in Nobleton, I was paying almost 9,000 a year rather.
Holy.
Okay, so let me find you about 2,000 square feet. 5,200.
So the only thing that affects us here right now is the interest rate, okay? Because if you're paying 8% on a DSCR loan, you're going to be putting a few bucks away, right? Like it's again because of the rate. If that rate comes back down to 3 to 4%, you're making just on a regular, let's say, townhouse or something with full, just rented yearly, not like a seasonal rent or anything like that. You're going to be like $800 to $900 a month positive cash flow, right? So return on capital, like investment like that, it's going to be better here based on the house. And it's not just the market or whatever, it's the house pricing, because house prices get wonky at some point because people can't afford the rents. So if you have houses between the 3 to 500 range, it doesn't matter where in the world, you're always going to be in a profitable state, right? Based on the current rents. When the houses get up to $1 million, $1.5 million, nothing makes sense anymore for rent purposes. So right now, it's the cost of the houses that keeps these things positive. For appreciation and stuff like that. Again, I'm gonna say Toronto.
No, but we're not talking about appreciation. We're talking about if you wanted to get best bang for the buck as far as rental goes. So here, I have some stats. I got some actual numbers here. If you wanted to get a 1-bedroom apartment in Fort Myers currently right now, per month, you're looking anywhere from $900 to $1,500 a month. Does that make sense to you?
I think the 900 is low.
What is that? Sorry?
For a 1-bedroom apartment in Fort Myers.
Yeah, like a rental?
Yeah, 900 to 1,500 per month. Can you get that?
In what? A townhouse? What is that? 900 is a condo?
A bedroom apartment in Fort Myers.
It'd be a condo.
It depends which area, right? Yeah, I think, but look, they have condos here, like in Fort Myers, Estero, Naples. like just I think 1,100 square feet. Those are like 2,500 a month, right? Depends how how old the building is. Clearly, yeah, you could be in a slummy area and pay 900 bucks a month.
So the reason why I'm saying this is because the average one bedroom apartment in Toronto goes from 2,000 to 3,800 per month. That's how much rental you can charge.
Yeah, for sure.
So now the question I asked to both of
But-
you is, which one is a better market to be in?
Well, because the one in Toronto that I'm gonna get 2,500, 23, 24, 2,500 a month, I gotta spend like 650, 700 K to buy it.
Opposed to 300.
Well, US, so let's call it 450
Oh,
probably.
so you're saving like 200,000.
Yeah. And the difference in landlord tenant rules there versus here.
Steph, like we have a client now that wants to rent out their property downtown Toronto, Fort York. Again, it's a one bedroom, whatever it is, like just under 1,000 square feet, maybe 800 square feet, and it's gonna rent, yeah, like $2,500. But what did they buy it for? 600,000-700,000 originally? Like those numbers don't make sense to me, right? Unless they paid 300,000 for it, like at the birth of the building, that makes difference. It's just the value of the property purchase where you're going to get like a positive cash flow. So that's why, like, even here, like at some point, Florida's not going to be sustainable because the prices are increasing. Once you get the threshold where the rent doesn't meet passive cash flow, then you're going to have to switch gears. But being here in let's just say Florida as the home base, I have access to 50 states that I can make this change, right? Whatever I feel more fit that's going to make positive cash flow, I can move around. That's a difference here. Is you can move around and you're trading US dollars. So you can, if it doesn't make sense here, you can refinance that property, pull the money out, move it somewhere else in the States. I think it's different. It's like playing AAA hockey, then you're playing in the NHL. It's a way different process,
And then the very last topic to this episode, guys, because risk and resilience, which market is perceived to be more resilient to economic downturns?
I think they both shown resilience, but like Steve said, the drop in price that he experienced with his clients in that neighborhood, I guess it was in North Fort Myers, they dropped like what was it, 5 to 7%. Versus here, he's talking about his own house that he sold when they sold, I guess, at the height of the market. We've seen what, a 30% drop in price, right? And that's like a similar type of property, like just on the outskirts of like your main hubs, right?
So who wins this, Florida or Toronto?
Well, 5% is less than 30.
Yeah. I think
so.
Going
Clearly,
back to that, sorry, let me touch on that quickly. So same thing. Like, so what Mike's saying, that we got a less drop on let's say inflation or whatever it is on value. Number one, like the overinflated market is definitely in Toronto by far. We know we're paying way too much for what we're getting. So that's that, and that's based on obviously shortage of houses and the money game, which was so easily attained and spent on stuff that didn't, like, weren't getting the value. It's like dealing with a slumlord. You were paying so much money for a lesser of a product. And then I go back to, again, that economic state where Florida kind of held up a lot better than not only just towards Canada, but towards other places in America. Like like if you went up north in like New York or Buffalo, whatever it was, those things dropped pretty heavily too, like Toronto. And that's because a lot of people are egressed out here with a lot more money, so they have a lot less debt out here. And again, people do have debt; it's not the end all, but ultimately, it's a lot less. There's 60% of the houses were paid in cash here in year 22, right? So think about it. If you're paying cash, you're not worried about the market fluctuating.
Yeah, that increase
what we saw in Toronto was people got squeezed with their mortgages, right? They were in variables and then they were paying, $3,000 a month to like $6,000-7,000 a month. So they got squeezed. People were forced to sell. Values came down dramatically based on affordability issues. And again, we held in really good compared to what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was literally going to be like a devastation of real estate, and it held in pretty damn good, to be honest, based on all the current events that everyone faces as a general public with the unaffordability, right, of holding on to property. So,
and we're starting to see that value come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an uptick now.
So, all right, I guess that's the end of this one, Steph.
That's right.
I got the cue.
Very informative episode. But now it comes to the point where obviously we're going to have more topics to discuss in further episodes. But in this one, we're going to say goodbye. Where can they find us, Mike?
They can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and Steve.
Guys, man, stop asking me this. We're good, man. Yeah, you're good.
At Steven Zelenardo.
You're the best.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Done. Good. Good. Perfect. Done.